Solar. Two players who clearly have been working towards this tournament. Everything they have done throughout the entirety of 2024. And we've had some big tournaments. We went to Dallas, and of course we had Katowice. But this really is the one. Not just for us, but for these guys too.
100%. I mean, Solar has been grinding away on the Korean ladder for quite some time. For the past month or so, he's been playing so many games every single day. He's kind of going the Oliveira route, whereas herO is the one that's practicing more in the custom games. He has dodged all the open cups, just like we said, and we're not used to that. Because usually herO is the player that plays in all of these online cups. We know exactly what we can expect from him. It's usually aggression one way or another, but this time he's really a question mark. And I talked with Solar before, and he also said, yeah, I don't really know. I want to play mostly reactive, but we can see he has something cooked up on this map already, as he's starting with a 14 pool, which is the counter to a no-scout opening, which is what it seems like herO's doing so far.
Yeah, this can actually get pretty bad for herO, especially because herO does like to expose his first pylon. If these links get a wrap around that pylon immediately, there is no Zealot in production. It's going to take a long time before you can build an Adept. Is this an absolute disaster for herO, or just a little bit of a disaster? I feel like at the bare minimum, he is going to lose a bunch of probes here.
I think this is a mega disaster, because this pylon, I mean, this gateway is going to get unpowered. He needs to pull the probes right away. He pulls a lot of them. I think this is a good amount.
Yeah.
Oh, he actually protects the pylon. Good mineral walk from herO. Let's see how many probes he's going to get. 2 fall right away. 3, but I think that's it for now.
Yeah, but it's still going to take a long time before we get our first gateway unit out. This is still 4 Zerglings in the main base. That's not something you can ignore. 5 of them even, as there are 2 links on the left side. Solar off to a pretty flying start here in Group B. His first match of the Esports World Cup 2024. 4 workers going down. Stalker finally about to come out, but I actually think Solar gets at least 1 more probe, perhaps 2, with how low on HP some of these workers are.
Oh my god, herO's microing this so well. He only lost 4 workers, and that 1 low HP probe is now regenerated. So Solar is not going to get that one either. And remember, this was with a no-scout opening. This was also not a 12 pull from Solar, so this is not the most committed opening that Zerg has. I still think he feels okay in the spot, just because of the amount of mining time that herO lost. But I also think if I play against the Protoss and I know he's not scouting, I feel like I'm just going to win the game straight up. And that's not what we saw here.
No, it's a lot of damage, not quite that game-ending damage. Obviously, herO's build order is really thrown out of the window, though, and now everything is just going to feel late and awkward. We do see the Stargate. If you're a Protoss right now, we see everything, so we know that herO doesn't really have anything to worry about anymore. But if you're herO, these are actually scary seconds, because you're like, is there more coming? What would happen if a couple of roaches show up? That's perhaps why he went for that sentry as quickly as possible. You can go for a hallucinated Phoenix here to get some high ground vision and at least pick up this Overlord. And every second that goes by now for herO is going to be a very relaxing one, where he's like, all right, that was just it. You've just opened up with a bunch of Zerglings. It kind of felt that, as crazy as this may sound, if Solar would have done something absolutely bizarre, like pulling the drones, there's a chance he straight up wins the game there.
Yeah, 100%. I think if he like 12 full drone pulls, he wins the game right here. Here, I'm not even sure that he's that far ahead. And one thing that I have to mention is that he went Sentry and then Stargate after. This is super uncommon because it costs so much gas to get the Sentry out right away. And I don't think Solar knows that there is a Stargate at all. So there is a very big potential for this Oracle to deal some damage.
Yeah, but it is a late Oracle, right? Because of the amount of probes that herO lost and the lost mining time. All those workers were battling for a little bit. So there is a lot of potential in this Oracle, but it's also hitting so much later than herO would have normally liked to show up with his first Oracle.
It's so good, though. Solar doesn't expect this Oracle at all. He only goes up to 4 Queens. He went for early speed, and he's going for a Roach War. And he's even going Fleet Beacon on post you. That is crazy. So he's going to go 2 base, either Tempest or Carrier. We'll see. But build order-wise, this looks good for herO, because I don't think there's any spores on the map. The queens are out of position. 1 queen is here now. Okay, that was maybe not the best way to enter.
Ooh, that's a lot of damage on that first
Yeah, but there's
Oracle.
nothing here, so you can get maybe a couple more drones. A lot of mining time lost. Oh my god.
He's cutting it real close, but herO does get out of there with the Oracle for now, unless there was 1 more queen on the 3rd, but there is not the activated, or it was still
crazy.
active. Pulsar Beam gets 2 extra workers, so he does get those 5 drones that you always look for as a Protoss. The Fleet Beacon, double Stargate is definitely a crazy follow-up. It can be a bit tricky to now go up to 3 bases if you're herO, because that 1 Oracle used almost all of its energy on the other side of the map. And he's forced to make a few more gateway units, and he's opening up with the Tempest here.
Oh, I'm so happy that Solar actually went for the quick lair. Otherwise, he would be in immense trouble. If he went for like +1 melee, you just can't even get a reactive Spire, even when you see the Tempest move out. I wonder how many Tempests he's going to hide before he shows them, because he goes for the anti-building upgrade right away, so I think he's going to try to snipe some hatcheries.
Yeah, perhaps the center one, right? Because if Solar does go up to 4 bases by trying to take the gold, Yeah, Tempests are going to have a field day. You're on the high ground, you're in the center of the map. There shouldn't be a lot of creep there. So that would actually be a very cool play. And something that has always kind of held true in this matchup, if it's 3 base against 3 base, that's amazing for Protoss. And even if you can delay the 4th base of the Zerg forever, if you can just get one cancel, perhaps back-to-back cancels, you are kind of loving it. It doesn't really matter how the game has opened up. If you're not 20 workers and a lot of upgrades behind, you love the idea of being a 3-base Protoss against a 3-base Zerg.
I actually think he wants more though. If I was herO, I would hide them for as long as possible and try to kill the main and the natural. Because this game is super weird, so you're not sure as a Zerg if you have you're not sure as the Protoss if the Zerg even has a lair, and I think he's gonna try to maximize the damage. I think just denying the 4th base is not quite enough because he stops probes in order to get these Tempests out, right? The 3rd base is not quite that early and he doesn't have extra tech, so here come the Tempests and they start shooting at the hatchery right away.
There's a lot of potential in these Tempests, but we can't ignore the worker count. Right now it is 65 drones against 49. So herO needs to do a lot, because this is a very big investment. The second Stargate, the Fleet Beacon, all these Tempests that are not going to be fantastic in a straight-up fight. As Solar, by the way, while looking at this, makes 20 more links. I wonder if he feels that he can run all of his ground units to the other side of the map. I believe he had a couple of roaches too. I mean, what herO has right now on the ground is not great, but near a battery, it might still be enough, and obviously a Tempest can always help out defensively.
Yeah, and he has a battery ready, even in the main base ramp. And he's even making 2 wide rails just for that purpose, so he can fully focus on the front. I don't think there's enough Zerglings to do anything, but Solar is just trying to buy time to distract herO, so he's not microing perfectly at the front. Solar already gave up on mining from this space. He does have the gold up though, so his mining is still good. It's just important that he doesn't lose more than this.
Do you like canceling or killing this base more than just killing the 4th base?
I think so, because you also deny mining time right away. A gold base, it also has less minerals, so if you have the drones anyways, it doesn't actually mine that much more than just a normal blue base. And now he can go over to the gold base, and with the queen slightly out of position, the hatchery dies so quickly.
First 6 Corruptors are on the way. Once 6 Corruptors are out, we can absolutely battle a couple of Tempests, but then we can't ignore those Void Rays anymore, because herO did make a few Void Rays. 1 or 2 queens already falling, so herO doesn't just get the in-base expand. herO is gonna get that 4th base in the center of the map as well. And playing against the 3-base Zerg is nice, but playing against the 2-base Zerg, that's a whole lot better. At this point, I would almost say, herO, why don't we recall? Aren't we happy with what we've done?
Yeah, I think he's gonna see the Corruptors and instantly go back. He's not even recalling, he saves the energy on the Nexus, because this is a very short map, and I guess he's very close to the Stalkers and the Void Rays, but he should be satisfied with this position. I 100% agree. I think he dealt enough damage, killed 2 hatcheries. Solar right now on 2-base mining, and Solar doesn't have a great army either, because herO is transitioning into Blink Stalkers, into ground, and now the entire standing army of Solar is basically just Corruptors.
I'm sure Solar has played this out many times in his head, but I don't think he ever thought 9 minutes in he'd be a 2-base Zerg against herO. That is the last thing that he would have ever signed up for. He's just in an incredibly awkward spot, because we don't even have that argument where, well, Solar has better upgrades. Solar has spellcasters that can really make up for a lack of army. Now Solar is just in all sorts of trouble. And what a call by herO to first go for that in-base expand, knowing that he was going to get that, and he would still get the center base too.
Yeah, that was honestly great stuff from herO. I think this game also started as well as it possibly could have, build otherwise for Solar. He predicted the no-scout, it was a no-scout, but it didn't seem to be enough damage. And herO just, I mean, that hold at the start set him up for this build, and then even the mind game with the sentry. I wonder if this is what he had planned to begin with as well.
So do you think that Solar messed up in the beginning with this Zergling? Should he have just fought a little bit longer rather than start running around? Because there was a moment where it almost felt we reached the tipping point where a lot of probes would go down immediately and the Zerglings would really shine, and instead of getting 4 workers, you get 7 or 8.
I think maybe he fought too early with the first Zerglings, and maybe if he waits for 10 links, because then still the Stalker doesn't spawn, right? And the probes are still committed to fighting, because you still need to protect the pylon. Like, the Stalker was ways away from finishing. That would have been better, and also he lost the left side of his Zerglings for free off camera. And he didn't kill a single probe with those. So yeah, it was maybe not the absolute best execution from Solar, but also insane defense.
I do like what Solar is doing now. This is not the kind of game anymore where he can just macro up and get a couple of Infestors or Vipers way down the line. And yeah, let's get Adrenal Glands, Ultras. No, he's just gonna go for it with a lot of Roaches, a lot of Ravagers, a bunch of Corruptors to take care of those Void Rays and the Tempest. He knows that this is the unit comp that's gonna need to get the job done, and there is absolutely a chance, but Battery Overcharge is so powerful that's something Solar is gonna have to respect. And those force fields by herO, he actually trapped 5 Roaches there.
Yeah, those were great force fields, because Solar just wanted to pull back the moment he saw the super battery. Since herO positioned his army in a way where you can't corrosify down the battery, Oh my god, he even blinks forward into the all-in of Solar. I'm not sure if that was the move. A lot of corrosive vials zoning out the rest of the army. So herO blinked forward, then needs to move back. A lot of more corrosive vials landing, and a lot of the Tempest also dying at the same time. I think herO getting a little bit ahead of himself there.
Yeah, but Storm did finish up. Maybe he thought he already had it, right? He's like, I'm just gonna blink forward, I'm gonna Storm immediately. He's like, oh, I need 7 more seconds before Storm. But Storm is done at this point. Zealot Charge is done as well. And even +2 is about to finish up. +2 Stalkers against Roaches that don't have any armor upgrades. That's obviously not a very pleasant spot for Solar to be in. The supplies at this point a little bit deceiving. I do believe that Solar dropped the Hydra then, which honestly I'm a little bit confused by. Because I think at this point your best shot is nothing but Roaches, Ravages, since herO is running a little bit low on units and also doesn't have a lot of Storms to work with anymore.
Yeah, I don't know that herO's army even got a lot better, because Solar has managed to trade away against some of the gas units. The High Templars obviously morphed into Archons, and the Storm is really good. And now you're forward blink, and Solar was not ready for that at all. The army was a little bit move commanding, but now he has a great concave of Roach Ravager, and herO once again needs to fall back. He doesn't need to fight here, he's ahead in workers. Fight with your battery. He also doesn't start any extra batteries, no energy left.
The reinforcements showed up at a picture-perfect moment there for Solar, because I actually think that blink initially was a good idea against the leftover army of Solar, but the next wave of Zerg units showed up at the bottom right side of our screen, and that turned it into a pretty good fight for Solar. And at this point, I'm starting to believe that supply a little bit. Earlier, I thought it was lying, and at this point, you start looking at like, is there a shot for Solar? herO should obviously have another battery overcharge available. He's still getting all these late-game upgrades. He's even investing in his fire. I almost feel that herO is not showing this respect that perhaps he deserves, because Solar is incredibly committed.
Yeah, he's incredibly committed. Once again, he blinks forward. I think it's just an unfortunate situation where herO misjudged once again. There's a lot of Ravagers that look exposed, but there's just such a big army from Solar, you can't blink into it.
That was the third blink that was questionable. The first one was like, we're in a good enough spot to justify it. The second one, okay, we got unfortunate because the reinforcements showed up. The third one here, that was absolutely unnecessary. herO, you've got great upgrades coming online. You're a 4-base Protoss, you're about to become a 5-base Protoss. Solar now is making his very first few Hydras. I'm really confused about these Hydras because I feel like we don't have the economy to support Hydras.
Yeah, I'm not convinced by the Hydras either. I mean, herO's remaking Tempest, which I kind of like, because Tempests are not that expensive. He's not close to being maxed out, so it's not like they make his army weaker. And he killed all of the Corruptors in the last couple of fights, so he will have constant damage output once again. But Solar now trying to go for this round, also coming in from the left-hand side, good for his field.
Solar is going to take a decent fight in the center of the map, but he should never take a great fight near batteries.
Yeah.
And because of that, the Tempests are amazing units, right? Because you can just chip away at that Zerg army while getting some support of your static defenses. Solar actually getting both of the Hydra upgrades. We've got like the 5 Hydra attack incoming, Lambo. And you know what? If herO keeps bleeding out Stalkers the way that he has been bleeding out Stalkers, the fact that we've got all that creep there, by the way, on the left is massive for Solar, who's doing a good job in fighting economic damage over and over again. But herO is going to make it hard. Solar has not played like the cleanest game ever, so we don't have a bunch of spine crawlers. We don't have vision everywhere. But what he is able to do is kill Tempest over and over again as he does eat a big storm there. This game is nuts. This series is off to a fantastic start.
God, the DT run by will finish off the hatch. Solar is so committed here. I can't believe he just killed the 2 Tempests. His army really isn't supposed to kill any Tempest at this point. And now, oh, he finds himself without an Overseer. Oh, he had one earlier. Maybe herO sniped it at the back there with the Stalkers. And now he's surrounding the army. He's forcing the engagement with a constant DT, DPS, fighting against the Ravagers. I don't think this is a fight that Solar can take whatsoever, but he just can't escape.
No, the Stalkers obviously were very exposed once more, so a couple of the Stalkers do die. But yeah, we've got 4 or 5 DTs on the ground, no Overseer in the mix, no Spore Crawler nearby. That was never going to end well for the Zerg. And we already mentioned the questionable economy of Solar a couple of times. Solar has been committed since the very first Roach Ravager Corruptor attack on the gold. He has never looked back. He's been like, no, this is it, I want to win the game. Eventually tried to sneak out a couple of Hydras, but herO's having none of it, and herO's playing reckless, crazy, aggressive. The herO, I guess, we all know and love, and it's gonna be okay. Because with +3 attack and +2 armor, you don't have to respect Roaches and Ravagers with no armor upgrades.
Yeah, at this point, he's ahead not only in supply, not only in the worker count, but also in the army supply, and he just has the way better army. Solar doesn't have the tools anymore to deal with the Protoss army at this point. It's just, herO has such a great army, and he can at any moment also just fall back on his storms, kite back. Solar doesn't have any catch in his army. He can't catch these Stalkers.
Kind of feel like this does so many things right, and then we also had the crazy call or 2, but it's okay because he's so damn good at so many things when it comes to StarCraft 2 that he can get away with a questionable blink here and there. He will lose a Tempest against a couple 2 Hydras that don't have any upgrades. It doesn't matter, because herO did make a lot of correct calls in the end. Had a great hold in the early game. He had to work for it, but at this point, this game is really coming close to an end, as 11 drones have died, and there is our GG. herO will take the 1-0 lead.
Yeah, crazy game considering how it started. He also did a great job with the Zealot run-bys consistently. I like that he didn't use them in his main army, because his main army was poking, it was a long-range army. If you just sent the Zealots forward, they just die to the Roach Ravager. So I like that he constantly used the Zealots on the counterattack, forced some units of Solar back home, which also makes his job on his own side a little bit easier. So overall, he did a lot of good, just the blinks were a little bit questionable.
Yeah, the first one is like, okay, maybe if we thought we had Storm, I guess we're going to take another look at it, and that's going to be a fun one. The second one is like, that wasn't really needed, but I guess you didn't know that all those extra units were going to show up. The third one actually really made his life a little bit harder than it ever should have been. And I guess what also made this an awkward game is just that the economies were a little bit offbeat of the very get-go because of all those links, killing the probes, lost mining time. We never had a robo. In a 12-minute game, we never had a robo, which meant cleaning creep was incredibly difficult because we obviously lost that Oracle at a certain point to Queens or Corruptors, whatever it was. So it's just awkward when there is so much vision here for Solar to work with.
I have to mention that usually the response to the Tempest is that you mass drones until the Spire is done, because you can't really do a whole lot with the links on the other side.
Yeah.
So there is a possibility that herO thought Solar was on 80 drones the entire time, and he needs to mine off that gold base. Otherwise, he maybe falls behind. And that's why he tried to hold so far forward, because otherwise you can siege the worker line from the high ground, and it's a very uncomfortable situation for the Protoss. So he might have misjudged either his position, as in he was so far ahead, or that Solar had many workers.
Yeah, there was that one moment where the Tempest showed up for the very first time, and we looked at the production top and we're like, Solar made 20 more Zerglings. And that's not the biggest investment ever, but that's 10 drones that could have gone to a different base. That's a base that Solar could have almost immediately saturated. And instead we made 20 lings, we looked at the other side of the map. It's not a great Protoss army, but it's just good enough to deal with those Zerglings. Yeah. If you're tucked in between your pylons and your mineral patches and you've got batteries supporting you, you've got a random Tempest popping. He even made those 2 safety Void Rays that could have helped him out against all the Roaches and Lings if he really needed it. Yeah, those Lings were probably not it, but this was just a wild game where there were a lot of if, buts and maybes that I'm sure that both players would have liked to do a thing or two different. But in the end, herO is going to be happy with the way that one played out.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, this was such a classic herO game. If you show me this replay, I can already tell you that this is herO. If this is showtime and he's getting attacked, he's moving the probes away and he's holding back, making 3 extra batteries because he's like, well, I'm getting all in. Let's move the probes back. I don't need to hold this whatsoever. And here's like, nope, I got this. There's some Ravagers exposed. Let me snipe them. Let's go forward with the blink. It's such a classic herO game, honestly, from start to finish.
I was thinking the same thing. This game had herO written all over it. So many good moves and then 1 or 2 crazy moves, but it's all good as this man has taken the 1-0 lead in his opening best of 5 of the Esports World Cup. Spawning in the top left side of Oceanborn for round 2, it is herO.
And his opponent spawning in the bottom right-hand side. It is one of the most solid Zerg players. Representing Vitality, it is Solar.
Poor Solar, probably planned post youth out for months, and he had all these great ideas and these great timings, and he's like, this is how I'm going to start off, and then I'm going to find myself an XYZ, and he might do this. I don't think the double Stargate Tempest is something that really crossed his mind. And even if it did, I don't think he would have ever thought he would end up being a 2-base Zerg at minute 7, which is just so awkward. These are the kind of games that you may find yourself in once or twice, but the lead up to that moment is always going to be vastly different than what we've just seen.
Yeah, I think herO would have done that strategy no matter what. He probably had that pre-planned for that map, and it's very smart on this map because not only can the Tempest get across quickly because it's a short map, but also you can scout the gases at the natural, which you can on a lot of other maps. So he goes quick 4 gas, which is such a huge tell, but Solar just, there's no way of scouting on that map. And he even goes Stalker Sentry, and he searches for the Overlord with that hallucination. So then there's no way of scouting this whatsoever.
Yeah, it was maybe a little bit risky to go for the Stalker, because imagine if Solar would have done that link opening, but he also had quick Zergling speed behind it, and he would have shown up with 12 more links, then the Stalker is just not going to be any good. Even if it's part of the wall off and it's 3 or 4 Zerglings attacking the Stalker DPS would not have been good enough. And obviously you can't pull off a micro trick either, like you can with the Adept, where you can build buildings behind the Adept and you can shade back. I guess you could start building a pylon and a gate behind the Stalker and then recall the Stalker, but those few seconds could actually be enough for Zerglings to kill the Stalker, and if there's no DPS anymore, the game would have been straight up over. I mean, herO absolutely gambled there. He gambles with his start and he gambled with the follow-up a little bit, but he got away with it.
He got away with it. That Tempest opener also it counters all the different Queen Walks, all the different all-ins that Solar could have done. So I think it was a very smart strategy, honestly. Good choice by herO. And this game around, he's not going to go for the no scout. He respects Solar's opening choice a little bit more and just plays it a little safer.
That's perhaps one thing that Solar can still take away from this very first game, where he absolutely set the tone for the rest of the series. Where it's like, hey, if I were you, I'd start scouting because I'm crazy and I am willing to be risky too. And Solar will obviously be kicking himself a tiny bit, where the start was not bad. Yeah, you kind of hope for more than just 4 probes and lost mining time. I was convinced he was going to get 6 because 2 of those probes were very low on HP, and at one point he still had 5 Zerglings. I was like, even if he just blindly click them on the workers right now, he's going to get them. But you pointed it out too, herO had some great probe micro where he made it very hard to attack the probe in the first place, and then while it was being attacked by 1 or 2 links, he still clicked it away through the other workers on top of a gas. It was just very well handled by our Korean Protoss.
Yeah, that was great. This time around, much more standard. herO just going for the warp gate skip to get the earlier Stargate out, then scouting with the adepts. Didn't even go for the double chrono, so it's not like he wants to necessarily YOLO in 2 of the adepts to deal a lot of damage right away. It's just the most standard, the most solid opener. So completely different from what we saw in game 1, and Solar also just opening up standard.
And this is still very fun, even if we get to see this stuff all the time. Now we know that both of them are 110% dialed in. This is not a random online cup at 4 AM where one of them is a little bit tired. No, this really comes down to the best opening of herO and the best possible defense from Solar. Where Solar so far has only been bleeding out Zerglings, and that may not be fantastic, but it's absolutely okay. It's okay to lose a couple links. What he does not want to do is lose a bunch of drones. herO's going to activate Pulsar Beam once more. It seems like he's going to get 2. No, I was going to say herO's the kind of guy that will still turn around and try to get the 3rd one if it goes back to that top mineral patch, but that would have just been too crazy. So far, absolutely acceptable on the side of Solar.
100%. Even killing 1 adept and getting whole damage done on the next adept is really nice, as he can kill this one right here, and he can even force this Oracle to activate the Pulsar Beam, so it loses a lot of energy, and that will just make his early game a lot simpler.
The first 6 minutes are so incredibly important in high-level PvZ or ZVP. It doesn't really matter what the way you look at it. As a Protoss, if this is the way you're playing, you're looking for damage. You're looking for a way to slow the Zerg down. And if you are a Zerg, you know it's coming. You've tried this. You've practiced against it over and over again. And it's okay to lose a little bit of mining time and lose a couple workers, but you don't want to see yourself end up losing double-digit drones. If you lose over 10 drones in the first 6 minutes of a ZVP, we don't want to be that guy to say that it's over, but against the perfect Protoss, it really is pretty much over.
It is very difficult. But this was quite the opposite. He lost only 3 drones, he killed 1 adept, and he got whole damage on both of the oracles, which makes it a lot easier going forward. It also makes it super hard for Protoss to continue to scout with these oracles, because that's their next job. They're not only here for harassment, but they're also here for the revelations later on, trying to get a hold of what the exact drone counts are, what the follow-up is of the Zerg. So that makes it a lot harder for herO. And once again, it's just 2 adepts caught in the middle of nowhere without really a second prong. Not quite timed with the Oracle, just like the first 2 adepts traded in as well.
Yeah, it's okay for herO to lose these adepts if they keep the Zerg busy and they give the Oracles an opening to sneak in, activate Pulsar Beam, zap down a couple of drones. But it just feels like that wasn't quite well timed out. And that gives Solar time to first take care of the adepts and then take care of the Oracles. Now Solar knows that the Oracles are on the other side of the map, at least 2 out of 3. And honestly, I wouldn't have hated it if he tried there for a split second. But of course, the Zerglings are important because we know that Solar is also investing in +1 melee, and he doesn't want to throw too many of them away, even if there was no shield battery there yet.
Yeah, I think Solar was very happy with the scout that he got there, because he is going for +1 melee, he's going for the Baneling Nest. So what you really want to face up against is against Blink Stalkers. You really don't want to play against Charged Out Archon, that's the worst matchup. So he's kind of blind countering exactly what herO is doing, and that combined with the early game that Solar had, I think puts him into a really nice position.
And if you look at it from herO's point of view, if herO right now would get a perfect scout off, would you say the more static D the merrier, just double down on cannons and batteries because you know Solar is coming? Or would you say no, start taking those gases and transition into something else?
I think transitioning into a Templar Archives is the most common follow-up. The moment you scout there's a Baneling Nest, the moment you see there is a quick evolution chamber, and he's already doing that. We can see him go into the Templar Archives. It's very important that these Stalkers don't get caught, because the moment +1 melee is done, you can actually, even with the Oracles, activating Pulsar Beam above the Stalkers, you can catch these Stalkers and find a good trade.
Yep, but there are some stasis traps being planted down on the left side, and that's where Solar obviously needs to be very wary of, because if the vast majority of your links get stuck, but herO does not have a unit in the wall. Classic herO there. Does have a couple of warp-ins available, so he warps in a few Stalkers in his main. I would love to take a little look at the natural, because I believe the most of the Zerglings of Solar went for the natural for a split second, brought him into the main in the end. Sometimes it does feel that this is one big bait from herO, because his defense against these run-bys is really good.
Yeah, I mean, he's had the most practice against them, given that he keeps it open all the time. I think he recalled there, so at least the Stalkers were not out on the map. It's still not bad for Solar, but that was still not great.
Yeah, because Solar left most of the links in the natural and only sent a couple of Zerglings in the main, so I guess herO recalled his main army to the natural, and that's why those Zerglings showed up a little bit later. But at that point, herO already had 6 Stalkers as well in his main base, so really good defense for herO. Perhaps he was just looking for that run-by.
Perhaps it was a bait all along. As we can see, Solar going for quick ultras, I think. I think he's playing a fast Hive. He has double upgrades on the way. He's definitely going to get quick Adrenal, which is very good against what herO's doing. But I think he noticed that herO doesn't like to add early robos in, as we see a double adapt run by.
It's kind of funny to see this 8 minutes into a game and there are so many Zerg units out on the battlefield. Obviously, Creep is making some very good progress. You don't really expect 2 adepts to actually successfully made it to the bottom side of the map and get on top of drones, but getting 5 workers with 2 random adepts there, that's actually pretty solid on the side of herO.
You know, I'm sometimes happy about that, because then I realize I forgot to put the Overlord on the left-hand side to spot for the Zealot run-bys later on. So I don't just straight up lose the base 5 minutes later against the Zealot, 10 Zealot run-by. But yeah, I wonder if Solar wants to head on to go for an attack right away, since he didn't drone up that high, or if he wants to wait for the ultras at first. As we see the first robo starting at 8:30, which is super late for herO, so the Immortal count will not be there. As we see a little bit of an attack here from Solar. It's not really a run-by, it's more like a run-by army going for a straight-up attack, as there is Storm ready, but yeah, herO was not trigger happy with those Storms at all and saved them.
The Zerglings are taking a pretty good fight though in the picture-in-picture against the Stalkers. herO has lost so many Stalkers as he was really focused on his High Templar Zealot micro over here on the right side. In the end, he's still forced to morph most of those High Templars into Archons. I would say this was one big success for Solar. Even if he lost a lot of links, even if he lost a lot of banelings, he killed over 8 Stalkers there, I believe, in front of the natural. And Stalkers are expensive, and it's okay to get rid of a couple of those Zerglings.
Oh, herO is actually transitioning into Fleet Beacon. This is exactly what you want to be up against if you're the Ultralisk player. The counter to the Ultralisk style is just going for 2 or 3 robos and then a lot of Immortals and Archons. But Ultras are actually very good against the Skytoss transition, because then the ground is a lot. That also means there's no second forge, and then you can just break through. You can multitask. It's very, very difficult to be everywhere at once if you go into carriers especially.
It's pretty shocking to see that Solar lost 90 Zerglings there, because it really didn't look like he lost 90 Zerglings. I guess a couple of those Storms truly were devastating. The fight over here in the natural was absolutely okay, but perhaps on the right side he didn't quite get what he was looking for, even if he forced a lot of those High Templars to morph into Archons. I was actually looking at the drone count of Solar as well, and right before he started droning a little bit, he was doing all of this of 74, 75 drones, and that is not quite it. It's okay to be on 75 drones if you have a terrifying army, if you're denying bases and you already have a bit of a bank. But Solar had no bank. To then produce that many Zerglings and Banelings of 75 drones is a little bit risky, because basically you're forcing yourself to really commit to every single attack, and there are certain moments where the Protoss is just ready, battery overcharge is available, the Storms are threatening, where you don't want to commit.
Yeah, 100%. But I think Solar's main objective with that was to not let herO max out, because if he gets to hit an Ultra timing and there's not a lot of Immortals, there's not a lot of Archons, even the Stalkers are pretty decent against Ultras, then it's going to become so difficult for herO to even just survive and not take a lot of probe damage. What I'm expecting Solar to do next is to split his army and once again try to attack into the natural and the fort base, but this time with Ultras. And I think this will have a lot more potential for damage.
Well, we need damage, because we look at the piggy bank of Solar, there is nothing left. No queens over here apparently in the bottom side of the map, but herO's actually getting a little bit derpy there with the oracles. Tiny misclick. Does get a scout off that this hatchery is about to come online in the bottom left side. Solar's got a lot of big upgrades about to finish up. We see +3 melee well on the way, +2 carapace is about to finish up. Here are these Archons for the first time. Well, the 2 Archons against 4 Ultras. The Storms are big, but in general, Ultras don't really care about your Storms, as Banelings find some good connections as well, but herO's supply is holding strong, and these Ultras are on move command, and herO with a perfect wall up there with a couple of Stalkers and 1 Immortal. I think herO's taking a fantastic fight.
herO is taking a fantastic fight. He held the first wave, and that was the most difficult, because I don't think he even saw the Ultras up until that point, and he had 0 Immortals for that. Like, none whatsoever, so good Storms. good unit retention as well, and he only lost 7 workers. There was a massive Ling Bane attack at the same time into the natural. I wish Solar split the Banings a little bit sooner into the third base, because I think that was the least defended base.
Solar had a pretty promising start once more. Good defense against the initial adepts, a good follow-up defense against the oracles. He really didn't give herO a whole lot to be mega happy with. But in the end, it's still starting to look that herO is getting exactly where he wants to be here on Oceanborn. Even if getting a 5th base may become a little bit difficult for herO. But once more, Solar has not played an ultra high economy ZVP here. We're not looking at a Zerg that's got like 10,000 resources in the bank. Can throw units at a 4-base herO all day, every day. Solar is going to really have to take some better fights, or he needs to start finding that crippling economic damage. Perhaps this is a moment where he can get on top of a couple of these High Templars. One Archon, by the way, holding the line there, soaking up a lot of these Banes, but the Zerglings are just not quite getting it done.
Oh my god, that Stalker position in the main base is nasty, with the carriers hitting from the top, even a surround at the bottom against the Ultras. I haven't seen Ultras get surrounded like that in a while. As Solar is super committed, he even brings the Queens forward. He's now starting his transition into his own late game army, but the Corruptor upgrades just started, and +2 is already done for the carriers.
It's crazy, because if you look at the minimap, you would not think that Solar is ever the committed player. And I do think that Solar, with all this creep, should be able to buy some time for himself, or hopefully he can get a slightly more powerful army out. But at this point, there are no spellcasters on the side of Solar. We don't have a single Infestor. We can't Neuroparasite a couple of these carriers. We don't have Vipers for Parasitic Bomb, or perhaps the Loco maneuver a little bit later. We have a couple of Corruptors, but just a few Corruptors without any upgrades against +2 carriers. I mean, Lambo, if there is one man on this planet who knows that I love +2 carriers, I know it's you. That is not going to be a pretty fight for Solar.
It will not be, and I'm also afraid for just the ground battle straight up, because herO has so much on the ground still, and I'm not sure that how many Ultras are we looking at right now? Because there is 2 more on the way, and he doesn't have any Infestors. It's only 4 Ultras against 5 Immortals, 10 Stalkers, and 4 Archons. I'm very afraid, especially about herO just stomping on the ground.
I do like what Solar is doing now, because I kind of feel like he's pretending a little bit. Like, hey, I still want to attack you, and I really hope that you don't move out. So he's buying some time, and while he's doing this, he can start saturating some of these bases in the bottom left or at 3 o'clock, and he can get a more powerful army out. He can get a stronger late-game army out, because earlier, in the previous minute, he was absolutely not ready to battle this army. And don't get me wrong, it's going to be incredibly difficult to take this army out in the next 2 or 3 minutes too, but Solar really does need some time.
I'm very afraid for Solar that he's making too many Corruptors, because herO hasn't made a carrier in the last 3 minutes. He stopped at like 5 carriers, I think, and Solar kept making Corruptors, but herO's army is fully anti-Ultralisk. Like, he has the perfect army on the ground, and I'm very afraid. And now, even that he's killing some probes, which theoretically should favor the Zerg, his army is just going to be even stronger, and I'm anticipating herO to move out very, very soon here.
Yeah, but it is intimidating, because we see the entire map. Yeah. We know what Solar is working with. We look at herO's army, we're like, whoop, that is one hell of a powerful army. If you're herO and you haven't been on the other side of the map in the last 7 minutes, and you see creep everywhere, it is an incredibly intimidating position to be in. Even if you look at your army, you'll be like, huh, I've got a pretty sick army over here. It is still so scary to move out, as here come the... Solar is ready to reset at least some of this Kaito's army and take a decent fight on the ground too. And herO Supply is absolutely taking a bit of a beating. You're spot on that on the ground herO is completely fine, but losing all those carriers while +3 air weapons is on the way is absolutely a little bit painful.
Yeah, there's no Greater Spire on the map yet, so these Corruptors are not going to be super useful. herO now counterattacking. herO was on move command for a good portion of that fight. That's why the fight went so good for Solar. I don't think he had any business attacking off creep there, but it worked out perfectly. And now herO is on the counter-offensive. Solar is way outmining him now, so herO is the committed player this time around. He doesn't have a War Prison for instant reinforcements, but his army is still looking powerful.
The army is looking powerful, but we are very deep on creep, right? There's no way out over here. Lings and Banes and a couple of Ultras coming in from the right side. We've got the Corruptors in the top left. Just a few Zerglings right now on top of these Ultras would be fantastic, because all the Archons are battling on the right side. Can Solar find those 40 or so Zerglings that he so desperately needs? It is starting to look grim, as most of the Ultras are melting, and all that's left on the ground is a few Queens. And now all the units that spawn one by one will die one by one. It is herO who takes the 2-0 lead after an explosive game on Oceanborn, where if you look at the minimap, you're like, this is all Solar, right? But yeah, if you then looked at the units that they were working with, and obviously we knew how the early game went, no, it was not all Solar. It was herO who was, I would say, in control of the majority of that game, ever since he got the very first hold off against those Ultras.
Yeah. I think up until that point, I really believed in Solar's position, but he just didn't manage to pull apart herO. As yeah, the first big Ling Bane attack also didn't go quite his way, but I think that one wasn't the absolute worst because he killed some stalkers, and that really matters for the later.
Yeah, we killed all the
stages.
stalkers in front of the natural with the picture-in-picture, and even if he doesn't get a lot of the High Templars here, I do believe he gets 1 or 2, and he does force the vast majority of the High Templars to morph into Archons.
Yeah.
And as long as you do that, you know that the Protoss is not going to have a lot of storms for the next battle. So this was not a total disaster, even if we lost a lot of links. Perhaps one issue is that Solar was always doing this with like 77 drones, and that's a good economy. But that's not the sickest economy. This is not a Zerg on 6 bases with 90+ workers where you can throw away Ling Bane all day, every day. This was such a big moment, and these Ultras, like, I don't think they win the fight if they attack here, but move commanding Lambo does not help.
Yeah, no, I think he had the miss hotkey together with the run by in the end because he saw, okay, I can maybe do some damage here. And then he tried to run into the base, and I think the Ultras just ended up on the wrong hotkey. In the heat of the moment, this is the type of stuff that happened. That was the fight that actually went way better for Solar than I ever anticipated, and that's because herO was on move command. He was just straight up, his ground army wasn't fighting at the beginning, which bought the Corruptor so much time, because otherwise the ground army from Zerg would disappear way sooner, and then the Archons fire away at the Corruptors, which is really what you want to have happen here.
Like, if you look at this game right now, 15 minutes and 45 seconds into the game, and you look at the supplies, and you look at the meaning, you're like, Solar won this, right? But he just needed like 20, 30 more seconds to get a couple of extra units out, to be more ready to clean up those final Immortals, those final Archons, but he could not quite do it. I mean, even towards the very end, I felt like it's close, man. If like 20 Lings can surround on those 4 Immortals, while the Archons are battling on the right side against 1 Ultra and a couple of Queens, those fights can tip in favor of the Zerg so quickly.
Absolutely. Even just the drones coming in from the bottom actually changed that fight a little bit, because the Immortals were constantly firing away at the drones. It helped a lot. Even just his army didn't deal a lot of damage to drones, Zerglings, Queens, which is exactly the type of stuff that you can reinforce with. It was just barely not enough. I think we were very close to a tipping point there, and sadly Solar just didn't reach it.
One of these moments where if herO would have been a little indecisive, if he would have turned around one time, or he waits for another unit, Solar does have enough time to crank out all those additional Zerg units, and really could have gone his way. Instead, it is a 2-0 lead for this man in the top left side of Side Delta, giving us a very fun best of 5 here in Group B, opening day of the Esports World Cup for StarCraft II. It's herO.
And his opponent in the bottom right with a very tough task ahead of him. Can he do the almost impossible and reverse sweep the best Protoss in the world? It is Solar.
These two played against each other in this same city exactly a year ago. A very important match back then in the group stage of Gamers 8. And that is actually the kind of best of 5 that I still have some nightmares over, because we were all tied up after 4 games. The score was 2-2. Final map, a Babylon, and it looked so good for herO. Everything was looking perfect. He survived early game skirmishes. He had a dream army. He had a piggy bank, but he just got so deep on creep, not once but twice. In the end, the Solar cleaned up that army and managed to win a very important Game 5 over herO, which meant Solar went into the playoffs, herO got eliminated in the group stage, and obviously then Solar went on to reach the semi-final. So a lot of history between these two, not just in tiny online tournaments, but at big offline moments as well, like Gamers 8 in 2023.
100%. This is also the stage where Solar really shines. I feel like in the early rounds, he really shows his best StarCraft. Very often, he makes it to like the semifinals, the quarterfinals, and before that, he's so solid. It's just so difficult to beat him or to upset him.
We used to talk about it on the desk where we called him Group Stage Solar, and Group Stage Solar is just a completely different beast, man. That boy's unstoppable. Normally he shows up 3-0, 3-0, 3-0, straight into the playoffs. Well, it's not going to be that easy this time, but he's absolutely not down and out yet. These first 2 games were close, they were very competitive, and they absolutely had moments. Even in that first game, where Solar, of course, was in trouble after losing those 2 hatcheries, there were some moments where I really believed that Roaches, Ravages, and Corruptors were going to get the job done.
Yeah, I actually couldn't believe my eyes there, because I thought that game was very much so in herO's favor, but Solar managed to find some miraculous fights. I wonder if he wants to play a little more aggressive. I actually talked with Solar right before this match, and he told me if I lose less than 5 workers, it's easy. If I lose more than that, difficult.
Yep.
Last game, I think he lost exactly 5. So that was right in the center.
Really? I thought he only lost 3 for a little while. Where did he lose the
I
other
guess
2?
he lost, I think he lost 2 more later, maybe. At least in my memory,
The
I
start
have it
was pretty
registered.
clean. I think
He was 100% ahead. 100%.
I think Solar was happy, and obviously we're talking about 5 workers in the first 5-6 minutes until the first 3 bases are saturated. As a Zerg, you never want to lose drones, but if you lose 4 drones against a couple of random adepts when you're sitting on 80 drones, like, okay, annoying, but no big deal. If you lose 4 drones against that first Oracle, that just slows you down tremendously for the next 5 minutes into the game and makes your mid-game hell in general as a Zerg. So the first 5-6 minutes, incredibly important in this matchup, and once more that goes for both sides, of course.
Yeah, of course. herO once again opening up with a very standard Adept Oracle opener. Last time he didn't double chrono the Adepts and then still shaded in. That just means that he didn't respect Solar's Zergling count. Like, Solar hid the Zerglings away from him, because if you don't chrono the second Adept, the Zergling speed will finish just as the shade finishes. So if there's 6 or 8 Zerglings, you're just going to lose the 2 Adepts, and it will always be a bad trade. So I don't expect him to finish it once more. Let's see, though, because it's herO.
Well, there are some spots here that are so tempting, right? Especially, I think that final mineral patch right below the assimilator is like, oh, that's such a good spot for 2 Adepts to finish. Even if there are 6 Zerglings right on top of your Adepts, you're like, well, only 2 or 3 Lings at a time can attack my Adepts. I can maybe pick off a drone as well if they still go back to this mineral patch and they are within reach of the Adepts. So far, herO not finding a whole lot yet, and perhaps a little bit annoyed over that and says, you know what, I'll just take out some larvae. I may not be able to kill drones here, but I can still activate Pulsar Beam and take care of some of the larvae.
Yeah, this is passive damage, as well as with the Adepts. He denied some creep tumor timing of Solar, like he didn't get to spread the creep right away, which slows down the creep a little bit. So overall, this is, I think, the average outcome. If you really want to with the first Oracle, I think you can almost always get 2 drones if you fly into a mineral line with 2 queens, but herO not deciding to do it this time. Yeah, that was big. 3 drones in between the bases for basically free, and this time he didn't lose any HP on the Oracles.
Exactly.
Last time, after the first 2 fights with the Oracles, they were orange and red HP, I believe.
And that's so frustrating because Solar has played it very safe, very cautious up to this point, right? He wasn't rallying those drones immediately over. He was like, nope, I don't want to lose any of those workers. I am looking for a clean start here into Game 3. And then the moment where you finally grab a few drones, you send them over to the third. The Oracles show up at a picture-perfect moment for herO. And as you said, it's not just the fact that he gets 3 drones. He gets 3 drones without eating any shots of those queens whatsoever. So he can come back more for later.
He can, as he's doing right now, as 2 Adepts shade into the third base of Solar, snipe 1 and 2 drones right away, which the second shot connected in maximum range of these Adepts, barely getting the shot off. And Solar now slightly behind in workers. I think this is still an okay position in the early game. I think this is about an average PvZ early game.
Yeah, but he needs to stop right now. That was big for Solar.
Yeah.
Finally, the queens are in the right spot. And Spore Crawler helped out there as well, I believe. So he gets a full volley or 3 off. Oracle loses a lot of HP. And from here on out, herO needs to tread very carefully. Needs to slow things down a little bit. Because we were right at the tipping point where if herO finds another successful drive-by with those Oracles, it becomes a mega frustrating game for Solar, where it's just like, oh my god, I just cannot get to the spot that I want to be in. That was a very big moment.
Yeah, this time around he didn't open with +1 melee as well. So the build order war in PvZ is usually you don't want this to go up against Stalkers. So maybe he was predicting a Charged Archon build from herO this time around. Not the case though, as herO just opens the exact same as he did previously on Oceanborn, opening 4 gas Stalker into 6 gas. Still not the worst, as long as the Protoss doesn't super commit. It's not that bad to not have +1 melee. He fires up a quick Roach speed and we'll see where he wants to go from here, maybe into the Lurker transition.
That'd be very cool. I mean, we obviously haven't really seen Solar reach Hive in a very comfortable spot. We saw a bit of it on Oceanborn with some upgrades, Ultras down the line, but it always felt that it wasn't the quickest Hive. It's not as quick as we know Zerg players are capable of getting it. There is our infestation pit, 6 minutes and 30 seconds into the game. I'd love to see some Lurkers here. That'd be very fun. I do feel though that defending that right side base with just Roaches and Lings against a play like herO, so good with his Blink Stalkers on the edge of creep, that's going to be pretty difficult.
Yeah, I think in this game maybe not so much, because he's going for the Robo, the Templar Archives +2 and Charge, and he already is warping in extra Zealot, so he stopped at a very low Stalker count. But I would agree with you, if he just went like 6 gate Stalker, I think you would lose so many units just trying to defend that base, because you have no catch. As I said, without +1 melee, you can't just come in from the back with the Zerglings, and constantly herO will just focus fire down 1 Roach at a time. Let's see if that Zergling run by gets in. I don't think it did, right?
Nope.
Yeah.
Got an Adept in position, and herO is going to walk in a warp in a Safety Stalker right behind it. A triple Oracle with a lot of energy. Just kind of lurking there on the edge of creep. That's obviously a very good spot, because the moment that Solar tries to spread a little bit of creep, the Oracles are there to deny it immediately. And it's not comfortable as a Zerg to have your 4th base there and don't have any bit of a buffer for yourself with a bit of creep going on.
I wonder, did herO scout the infestation pit or the hive? Or does
Nope.
he have no idea of what is going on so far?
I don't think he's been in the main for a little while.
Yeah, so he's trying to figure out what exactly is going on right now. I think he saw that Solar did take 8 gas, so he knows there is attack, but theoretically it could still be Mutas from his point of view, which I think would have been kind of scary. Now he sees the hive, now he knows exactly what's up. The only thing that you kind of rush high for if you go missile and if you go for this many roaches is the lurker transition. So we'll see if herO once again wants to go for the quick fleet beacon or if he throws down the next robo, because those are the two ways that you can deal with the lurkers. Either you go very immortal heavy and you try to be active on the map, which herO is really good at, or you go into the quick carrier transition, forcing the Zerg to also go into some corruptors and slowing down the game instead.
Well, herO is firing up +1 air weapons, so he may be thinking about a fleet beacon and a second Stargate, but I also think it's the right call to just first get a couple of cannons and batteries, make sure your Immortal count is up there. Obviously, he's got plenty of High Templars to work with. Immortals are great, but I really think it's often the storms that keep the Zerg at bay. It's so difficult to attack into a Protoss that is standing there with a bunch of High Templars that are very well spread out. It's inevitable that these storms are going to connect in a big way.
Yeah, I think the big thing that herO can do now is move out with a little bit more of his army, because the hardest thing for Zerg to do if you go for a lurker army like this is move across the map and actually siege the lurkers in position. Yeah. It's so difficult because the moment you go for lurkers, as you said, you can stand in the middle of the map with some Immortals and some Storms. You have to siege up the lurkers every time to force them back a little bit, otherwise you're just going to eat Storms and you're not going to kill anything. herO actually going for a quick Tempest, which I love, because that is very good against the attacking version of the lurkers, where you try to siege, and because it basically puts a timer on the Zerg attack.
Yeah, but it does take a long time, because I feel like 2 Tempests just don't pack enough of a punch. And maybe even 4 Tempests is something that if you're Solar, if you bring the Queens over, you drop a Transfuse here or there, it's not something you have to be Omega worried about. Of course, the higher that number goes, the more frustrating it gets. And eventually, if we're looking at 6 or 8 Tempests, like, yeah, that really starts adding up. Then you start bleeding out expensive units like Lurkers rather quickly. But I do feel like if I'm Solar, I'd be like, okay, I know that eventually this is going to be a problem, but the first 2 Lurkers, I'm really not that worried of. Or first 2 Tempests, rather.
Yeah. It is the safer option, though, because they build quicker, they're also a little bit cheaper, so we'll see the way Solar approaches this. He also is going for the Nidus, so he's probably going to try attacking at the front, and then either Nidus into the back of herO's main base or Natural right away, or maybe he gives a Nidus to the Lurkers, so he has more movement options with those slow siege units. And you can see Solar already retreat. It's just so annoying.
herO is going to have to control his Tempest a bit more cleanly, though, than he did on Post-Youth. Now,
Yeah,
that was a map that he did still win, and obviously all is good if you end up winning, but he did lose a couple of them in a way that a world-class Protoss should not lose them. And this game is a lot more competitive than that one was, so he cannot afford to randomly lose them.
Yeah, 100%. Solar gets in with a couple of Zerglings as he also moves forward at the same time. herO not quite paying attention on the High Templars. No Storms being dropped, but he has to disengage just by the Immortal standing there and the Tempest constantly shooting. He just has no anti-air to catch these Tempests whatsoever. And now he's actually attacking into the snow, right? No.
I think that was a bit of an overcommitment there by herO, as he does drop a safety storm or 2. There are a couple of Zerglings nibbling away on the fleet beacon of all things. And that actually means that herO can no longer build any extra Tempests, can build carriers for a little while. What a pickup with a couple of random Zerglings.
Yeah, I don't think Solar expected that as well. He probably was like, okay, what's the best target for me to kill? And he just goes on the fleet beacon and just herO didn't pay attention. So
I bet herO is going to be so confused when he realizes he can't build any Tempests. He's like, that doesn't make any sense. I've got Tempests. Like, pause, referee, please. Like, he lost it to a couple links, my friend. Now, he does have a mothership. He's got a pretty terrifying army. But this is also the kind of army that if I'm Solar, I look at him and be like, if I can just get on top of it, I'm going to absolutely crush this Protoss force.
yeah, it's so difficult though. He needs a huge portion of his own army to come from behind, I feel like. Instead, he's going for big run-bys, which is also a good option against Tempest.
I do like it because these run-bys are going to make the game more chaotic, and that is what Solar needs right now. Because this army of herO has a lot of potential, but it's so flimsy. If Solar can just get a little surround, even a couple of roaches, a couple of lurkers coming in from the top, he could really take a magnificent fight. As the first Viper is out, we get an abduct up on one of those Tempests. The remaining Tempest count is 4. It's annoying, but Solar does not need to panic. He just needs to choose the next battle wisely.
Yes, I think maybe his best option at this point, honestly, is to go for more big counterattacks. Because herO's army is not very good at just breaking through, right? You try to pick apart at the Zerg 1 unit at a time, and he doesn't have a lot of units at home. So these small counterattacks are already so annoying for herO. I think maybe you leave a couple of lurkers at home and then go for a huge counterattack, maybe with a Nidus even.
Couple of Zealots is not going to be enough for herO. These Zerglings are feisty as +2 melee is about to finish off. I really love the way that Solar is playing this. It's such a mature decision to look at that bottom base and be like, I don't want to lose it, but I think it's okay to lose it right now. I've got bigger fish to fry. It's unfortunate for Solar that he didn't quite get the kill there on the cybernetic score. As herO has rebuilt his fleet beacon, by the way, right in the spot where he gets run by 24/7. So there is a chance that we lose another fleet beacon later on. But I love that call from Solar to just let that base die. And look at these Zerglings go. These buildings are so damn expensive. Fleet beacon 300 gas, Templar Archives 200 gas as the Protoss army is on creep.
Yep, and the mothership should go down here. Oh my god, the time warp, the Corruptors went back too soon. He 100% had that mothership. Now he's gonna get it anyways. herO was like, okay, this is fair play, I'm gonna give it to you. As he constantly still kills Corruptors one at a time, which forces Solar forward, but it's so difficult to... Oh my god, the Stalkers, that was... Was there blink on cooldown? I guess he blinked downwards?
Yeah, I don't know, but that's a lot of Stalkers that got absolutely obliterated by the Lurkers as the Zerglings are still doing that thing, not just getting a Templar Archives, but also getting a Stargate. These have been incredibly successful Zergling run-bys, not in the way of killing 20+ workers, but in picking off very expensive tech buildings. It really does feel that Solar is just counting down the seconds until he can get that one sweet surround. He has the kind of army that can get on top of herO's army, but obviously he's waiting for the perfect moment. This is also not the kind of army that you can run in range of and then be like, oh no, this is not the moment, I'm gonna disengage. Because then you lose so many Zerg units, and Solar is not kind of rich, but not mega rich. So he's just, I think, very patiently waiting for his perfect engagement. And as long as herO is out and about on the map, I believe this perfect engagement does exist for Solar.
Yeah, it's just so difficult to get, especially without any distractions. herO has struggled with these run-bys, mostly I think because he was almost maxed. So he couldn't warp in enough Zealots to deal with them. And this is still the case. But these are the engagements that very much so favor herO, because Solar just runs forward. The Tempest always kill the units one at a time in the storm zones.
Couple of Zerglings now run into the main base. They're going to try to pick up the Forge. That will not work. But if Solar can just distract herO a little bit with these run-bys, High Templars go pretty far forward. But it's okay because the Archons, the Immortals, and the High templars are here. And herO is going to find another big pickup on this hatchery in the top right side. Tempest now kind of left by themselves. Corruptors get a couple of shots up. That parasitic bomb is dealing serious damage on those remaining Tempest.
They're out of position now to defend the left side base, and the Lurkers can intercept the army of herO. And all of the static defense is unpowered now. This is Solar's time to strike. He has the bigger army. He picks off a couple of Tempest on the way back. There's still Stalkers, so herO's army is not very good at fighting directly into Solar's army.
Sniping those pylons was massive. Maybe we would have liked to see herO recall the army. He has not done that. herO's is in such an awkward spot right now with all those units at the bottom of that ramp. He does drop a couple of nice storms, softens up those Corruptors a little bit. Both players honestly floating a lot of resources for the level that they have and for the crazy game that this is. I guess Solar's is a little bit out of larva. As herO left a lot of units behind there, the Archons are going to go through the meat grinder. Those two Tempests are left all by themselves, and obviously they are dead right now as the Corruptors chase them down. I think Solar has played this really well. What a snipe on that pylon to unpower all those cannons and batteries.
All it took was one bad army movement decision from herO, and then he was cut off from his own most exposed base. And his army is so good at constantly picking apart, but it's so bad that if you're forced to engage into the Zerg army, you just can't do it.
It's funny, because if herO would have done it the other way around, I think he would have been totally fine.
Yeah.
If he leaves the Archons, Immortals, and High Templars on the high ground, and the Tempests go a little bit to the right to work on that hatchery, same result, but a very different outcome, because Solar can't run on top of those ground units, but he can run on top of the Tempests that were all by themselves.
Yeah. And then he just couldn't recall all of the units, so 3 more Archons, 2 more Tempests went down, and that's exactly what Solar needed. It's still a rough position for him, because he just doesn't have a catch. Like, how do you exactly engage this army? You kind of need an infestor to flank and get a fungal down, or you need a surround. So I think the best that he can do right now is try to go for massive counterattacks and then defend. I think that is kind of the game plan that I think Solar should go for.
Solar is firing up 8 Broodlords, so it's quite the opposite, right?
Yeah, it will allow him to move across the map with the Lurkers, actually. So this could help him in this type of scenario where he's just trading against the Tempest. The Broodlords are obviously not that good, but it allows him to move across the map with the Lurkers and even maybe move them across with the Nidus as well.
herO's Dark Shrine has finished up a little while ago as he does land a little fungal, and a fungal does mean that these Tempests are going to have a hard time getting away. He goes for the split target fire. He wants to get at least 2 Tempests, and he does grab 2 Tempests immediately. A lot of storms did get dropped there on the Zerg army. The Broodlords take a severe beating, but herO still has triple Stargate Tempest. have a hard time believing that the Broodlords are going to have a big impact. And dealing with Zealot run-bys when you go for a more immobile Zerg army yourself is incredibly difficult, as that hatchery finishes up and dies immediately. It's despite that great fight that Solar had earlier and denying this base from coming online, this game is starting to look more and more grim for Solar with each passing second.
Yeah, I think he needs more infestors. He needs more moments like the one we just saw where he funnels a couple of Tempests, actually kills some units, and then he can fully engage onto herO's army just without the fungal. It's so difficult. How do you ever stop herO from just moving back, shooting, storming when you engage with everything? It's so difficult.
Solar does have gas in the bank, so if he wants to, he can absolutely make a few more infestors. What he does not want is lose this base. Broodlord's fire, he gets one of the Archons immediately. We do land an abduct on the mothership, and that means that the mothership will die for the third time in this game. herO definitely lost some supply there, but still has 101 army supply. Solar seems to believe that this is an army he can absolutely chase down. I mean, the Broodlings do make it a lot more difficult for the High Templars to get to the front lines and drop Great Storms.
Yeah, it's just so hard against the Tempest. I also feel like this is kind of the time to go for Solar because he lost his 5th base and the 4th base he already had for quite a while. The 4 bases that he's on right now, yeah, it's resources. He probably needs to expand towards the left-hand side, but right now herO's out-mining him.
Yep, this base from herO is incredibly fresh. He's barely mined from it. Obviously, he lost it at one point, but there is so much left there. While Solar, his bases, there is a lot less left. There's a couple of the Stalkers now look for a counter-attack. Solar seems to believe that this was a moment to go for it, but battery overcharge is going to keep the unit safe. A lot of the High Templars took damage there, but they did not go down.
Yeah, and a lot of the Corruptors did take damage from the Storms, which is basically permanent damage for this. 2 good abducts on the Tempest, some good pickoffs. As long as he kills 1 or 2 more Tempest, he can't one-shot the Broodlords anymore. A couple of Archons also moving too far forward.
Those Stalkers are really missing right now, by the way. herO could have absolutely used a couple of the Stalkers there to keep those Corruptors at bay, but the Stalkers are instead dealing damage to the hatchery at the bottom side of the map. If Solar wasn't planning to all-in with this attack, he's absolutely planning on it right now. The High Templars go really far forward as the Lurkers get a couple of good shots off. The Broodlords are doing that thing. The Tempest count is low, is very low. Can the Corruptors get the final Tempest? 1 Tempest remains, but this 1 Tempest represents so much damage right now.
It represents so much damage. Solar's entire army is just Broodlords at this point. The Stalkers also running back. Solar just has no mining left. He has 54 workers remaining, but no fresh bases whatsoever. And the Stalkers are going for the flank. They're blinking forward, picking apart at the Lurker Broodlord army from both sides.
Is that a revelation here? Because that single Lurker, by the way, could potentially have a very big impact. Yeah, there is an Observer in the mix for herO. Solar obviously knows that he is in trouble. He lands an abduct, but he barely has any anti-air. That final Corruptor gets picked off, and it is starting to look like herO will be the one to advance into the second round of Group B. That means we get to see more of this man, his PVZ tomorrow, as he's going to take on herO. What a